It was a quiet evening at the Manor. The kind of evening that Yria cherished. The soft crackling of the fire in the hearth created a comforting backdrop to the gentle ticking of the old grandfather clock in the corner. Yria sat in her study, a book resting on her lap, though her thoughts were drifting far from its pages. The tranquility of the moment was interrupted by a gentle knock on the door. Yria looked up as George, her ever-reliable driver and dear friend, stepped into the room. His expression was calm, but there was a slight twinkle in his eye that hinted at something out of the ordinary. In his hand, he held a small envelope sealed with an old-fashioned wax stamp. "Miss Yria," George began, his voice warm and steady. "I found this near the entrance, tucked into the frame of the front door. It seems to be for you." Curious, Yria reached out and took the envelope from George. The paper was thick and elegant, the kind that was rarely used in modern times. She could feel the slight weight of it, the wax seal smooth under her fingers. Breaking the seal, she unfolded the letter inside, her eyes quickly scanning the neat, old-fashioned script. The message was brief, but intriguing. She read it out loud. "My dear Yria, if you seek to uncover the secrets that lie within these walls, meet me in the library at midnight. Come alone and bring with you a sense of adventure. Yours in mystery, the guest of the Manor." There was no signature, only this enigmatic invitation. Yria read the letter again, a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. It was unusual, to say the least, but the thought of a little mystery unfolding within her own home was too tempting to resist. Who could have sent this letter? Was it truly someone unknown? Or was it a playful gesture from a friend? George, who had been quietly observing her reaction, cleared his throat softly. "Shall I prepare anything for your midnight rendezvous, Miss Yria? Perhaps some tea to keep you company?" Yria shook her head, her smile widening. "No, George, that won't be necessary. But thank you. I think I'll handle this one on my own. George nodded, his expression one of gentle approval. Very well, Miss Yria. If you need anything, I'll be nearby. With that, George excused himself, leaving Yria alone with her thoughts and the mysterious letter. The clock ticked softly, counting down the minutes until midnight. Yria felt a thrill of anticipation building within her. She glanced at the letter one last time, then set it aside on the small table next to her. Rising from her chair, Yria looked around the study, taking in the familiar surroundings. The flickering firelight danced across the shelves lined with books, casting shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. As midnight approached, Yria knew she had to see where this invitation would lead. The library was just down the hall, a place she often visited, but tonight it held the promise of something different. With one last glance at the letter, Yria stepped out of her study, the sound of her footsteps muffled by the thick carpets. As she made her way toward the library, the manor was quiet, save for the soft creaking of the old wood beneath her feet and the distant hum of the night wind outside. It was the perfect setting for a little adventure, to reveal a new layer of the manor's timeless charm. As she approached the library door, Yria felt a slight chill of excitement run down her spine. She reached for the doorknob, turned it slowly, and stepped into the room. Yria took a deep breath, her senses alert, and her mind filled with anticipation. She could feel the weight of the history within these walls, the countless stories that had played out over the centuries. The room before her was bathed in the soft, golden light of a single candelabra on the large mahogany desk in the center of the room. The flickering flames cast long shadows across the shelves, which were lined with books that had been collected by generations of her family. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and polished wood, a comforting blend that Yria associated with countless hours spent lost in her favorite stories. As she stepped into the room, the door closed softly behind her, the sound barely audible over the quiet crackling of the fire in the small fireplace to her left. Yria's eyes scanned the room, looking for any sign of the mysterious guest who had summoned her here. But there was no one, just the quiet, familiar library and the soft whisper of the flames. Her gaze was drawn to the desk, where something caught her eye. Lying on the dark wood surface, partially hidden by the candelabra, was a small silver object. Yria walked over and picked it up, recognizing it immediately. It was a small ornate letter opener, something she hadn't seen in years. It had belonged to her grandmother from her dad's side, a woman who loved mysteries and had often used this very tool to open letters filled with secrets and stories. Beneath the letter opener was a folded piece of paper. Yria set the opener aside and carefully unfolded the note. The same elegant handwriting greeted her, bringing with it a sense of anticipation. To find the key that unlocks the past, seek the place where memories last. Among the relics of stories told lies the secret that you must hold. Yria read the riddle twice, letting the words sink in. Her mind began to work through the possibilities. The place where memories last? Could it be referring to a room where the family's history was mostly deeply rooted? She thought of the grand hall, a room filled with portraits, heirlooms, and artifacts that told the story of her ancestors. It was a place that held the essence of the manor's history, where memories truly did last. A smile curved her lips as she considered the second part of the riddle. Among the relics of stories told lies the secret that you must hold. The grand hall was certainly filled with relics, each with its own story. If there was a secret hidden there, it would make perfect sense. As she pondered this, Yria's attention was drawn to something small, yet significant. The handwriting on the back of the note. It was a small detail, but unmistakable. The handwriting belonged to Mrs. Betty, her beloved cook. Yria chuckled softly to herself, realizing that Mrs. Betty must have had a hand in crafting this playful mystery. It warmed her heart to think of her loyal staff going to such lengths to create something special for her. The realization didn't spoil the fun. If anything, It made Yria even more excited to see where the riddle would lead. She carefully folded the note and slipped it into her pocket. Her mind now set on the Grand Hall as the next destination. The library, though empty, seemed to buzz with a quiet energy. Yria took one last look around the room, feeling the familiar comfort of the space, before heading towards the door. The flickering candles and the warmth of the fire cast a cozy glow behind her. As Yria made her way through the manor, the corridors were dimly lit, and the only sound was the soft echo of her footsteps on the polished wood floors. The manor was vast and filled with countless rooms. Reaching the Grand Hall, Yria paused for a moment to take in the sight before her. This room, more than any other, was steeped in the history of her family. Portraits of ancestors lined in the walls, their eyes following her as she moved. The chandeliers, suspended high above, glittered faintly in the low light, their crystals capturing the soft glow of the lamps. Yria moved toward the center of the room, her steps slow and deliberate as she considered where the next clue might be hidden. Her eyes swept across the room, taking in the collection of items that had been passed down through generations. Each object held a story, and it was among these stories that she would find the next piece of the puzzle. Her gaze landed on a large chest, intricately carved with scenes from the past. It was an heirloom she remembered from her childhood, a piece that had always fascinated her with its detailed carvings and the air of mystery that surrounded it. She had not opened it in years. Kneeling beside the chest, Yria carefully lifted the lid. Inside, nestled among old documents and family keepsakes, was something she hadn't expected: a small, ornate key. The key was beautifully crafted, with an intricate design that hinted at its age and significance. Attached to it was another note, written in the same elegant script. This key unlocks more than just a door. It opens the way to a forgotten treasure. Yria's heart quickened with excitement as she held the key in her hand. The night's mystery was deepening, and she couldn't wait to see what this key would reveal. The Grand Hall, usually so still and formal, now felt alive with the promise of discovery. Somewhere in the manor, there was a door waiting to be unlocked, and Yria was determined to find it. Yria stood in the ground hall, the small ornate key resting in the palm of her hand. The key's intricate design caught the faint light of the chandeliers above, casting delicate patterns of shadow on her skin. It was clear that this key was no ordinary one. It held a significance that she was only beginning to understand. The note that accompanied it had promised that it unlocked more than just a door. But what could that mean? Did Mrs. Betty know something Yria ignored about the manor rooms? This could have easily been the case. Miss Betty had been working for Yria's grandfather long before Yria inherited the place. The grand hall was quiet. The portraits of her ancestors watching her from their gilded frames, as if they too were waiting to see what she would uncover. Yria could feel the weight of their gazes, a reminder of the legacy she had inherited and the responsibility that came with it. But tonight, the manor seemed to be in a playful mood, revealing its secrets to her one by one. The key was cool to the touch, its surface smooth and worn from years of use. Yria turned it over in her hand, admiring the craftsmanship and wondering which door it was meant to unlock. The manor was vast, with countless doors and rooms, some of which she had never explored. The possibilities were endless, but she was hoping that the key would lead her to something special. As she pondered her next move, Yria recalled the note that had come with the key. This key unlocks more than just a door. It opens the way to a forgotten treasure. The words echoed in her mind. What treasure could it be referring to? A hidden room, perhaps? Or a long-lost family heirloom? Whatever it was, she had to find it. Determined to follow the trail, Yria clutched the key and headed towards the area where she had seen the figure. The grand hall led into a long, narrow corridor lined with doors, most of which she had passed by many times without a second thought. But tonight, one door in particular caught her eye. It was a small, unassuming door, almost hidden in the shadows. at the end of the corridor. The wood was old and darkened with age, its surface rough and weathered. Unlike the other doors, this one had no ornate carvings or embellishments. It was simple, almost humble in appearance, but something about it drew Yria in. With a deep breath, Yria approached the door and reached for the keyhole. She inserted the key into the lock, her fingers trembling slightly with anticipation. The key turned smoothly, and with a soft click, the lock disengaged. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a room that had been hidden from view for who knows how long. Yria stepped inside, her breath catching in her throat as she took in the sight before her. The room was unlike any other in the manor. It was small and circular, with walls lined in rich dark wood. The floor was covered in a thick, luxurious rug, its intricate patterns still vibrant, despite the passage of time. The air was cool and fresh, with a faint scent of lavender that lingered in the background. But what struck Yria most was the way the room seemed to glow with a soft golden light, as if it were suspended in time, untouched by the years. In the center of the room stood a round table, draped with a pristine white cloth. On the table was an array of items that immediately caught Yria's attention. Mrs. Betty's finest pastries, carefully arranged on delicate porcelain plates, and George's favorite tea set, gleaming in the gentle light. A bouquet of fresh flowers sat in a crystal vase, their fragrance mingling with the lavender, filling the room with a soothing, floral scent. It was a beautiful, inviting scene, one that made Yria feel as though she had stepped into a different world, one of warmth and comfort. The table was set for tea, and it was clear that the preparations had been made with great care and thoughtfulness. As Yria moved closer to the table, she noticed something else, a small card propped up against a teacup. The card was written in the same elegant script as the previous notes, and Yria's heart swelled with emotion as she read the words. Dear Yria, we hope this little surprise brings you as much joy as it brought us to prepare it. You've been working so hard, and we wanted to create a moment of peace and happiness just for you. Take your time, enjoy the tea, and know that you are deeply cherished. With love, Mrs. Betty and George. Yria felt a lump form in her throat as she read the message. The confirmation that this entire mystery had been orchestrated by her dear friends, Mrs. Betty and George, filled her with gratitude and affection. They had noticed her recent moments of loneliness, her longing for the past, and had gone to great lengths to create a special experience just for her. She set the card down gently and took a seat at the table, her heart filled with warmth. The mystery was not about uncovering some long-lost treasure, but rather about the simple yet profound joy of friendship and the thoughtful gestures that made life so rich. As Yria poured herself a cup of tea and took a bite of one of Mrs. Betty's delicious pastries, she thought that this manor, with all its history and grandeur, was made truly special by the people who filled it with love and warmth. As she sat there, sipping her tea in the quiet golden light, Yria felt a deep sense of belonging. She was not just a resident of the manor. She was its heart, its keeper, and its storyteller. And with George and Mrs. Betty by her side, she knew that this grand old house would continue to be a place of warmth, mystery, and love for years to come.